ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest on the Dan Lebatard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
You can listen to us in Portland, AM 910. You can listen to us in Omaha on ESPN 590. Sirius XM Channel 80. You can watch us on ESPNU. I am getting super agitated by the texters. Amin Elhassan in with us today on ESPN Radio. A texter writes in, there's a race baiting problem, and I'm getting a lot of this, a lot of versions of this. And it comes pretty close to incensing me as someone who fancies himself emotionally even. There's a race-baiting problem fueled by the media inflaming a never-ending cycle of tension between an unruly part of our citizenry, and scared police. More black people are killed by other black people per year in Chicago alone than by police. The killing of innocent police for political ideology is the definition of terrorism. Of course, no one wants to talk about that, though. Oh, is that so? Because I keep hearing it again and again and again as unarmed black people keep getting shot by police officers who are using guns that we gave them the wrong way. And then what ends up happening is the escalation to something that's totally unforgivable, of course, which is shooting police officers dead in the street as a reaction to something. And I'm not interested in going back and forth here. It's all needlessly dead people. All of it. Needlessly dead people. But turning this into Kenny Smith is trying to do something at a time that all of us feel pretty damn helpless. He's trying to do something. You may not like what he's doing. You might not like how he's doing it. What are you doing?
And by the way, he's very open with saying, like, I don't have the answer, but I'm trying to find it out.
I mean, you can't be hard. You can't watch television news these days, and you can sit here and say the media is race baiting. Man, there are police officers dead in the street, killed over a cause. Some crazy people thought that was a cause, that felt so helpless that they thought that was the answer. Like they're reacting to something. It's insane, but they're reacting to something. And I'm perpetually frustrated by this, because I don't know what it's like to be black. I don't know. I'm talking to my friend about this weekend, Stugotz, and this is something that never enters my consciousness. Like, for example, when we talk about how it's different from being a man and privilege in this country to being a woman, I don't know what it's like to walk to my car at night and be scared, like a woman might be.
Sure.
I don't know what that's like, and I don't know what it's like. I was talking to a black friend of mine who's telling me, oh, yeah, my entire life, I make it a 5-mile radius on purpose, and I'm in my car as little as I possibly can be because I want to make sure that I don't get put in one of these positions where I'm in my car and I get killed for something and I wasn't doing anything. I'm just 240 pounds in black.
Imagine having to live your life like that.
Oh, but that's what I'm saying.
Right.
There's a disconnect here. There is a total disconnect here because you can't understand. How can I possibly understand that? I'm hearing it for the first time, and I'm like, you what? You do what? You've been my friend for how long, and you do what? Make my life 5-mile radius, try to stay in my car as little as humanly possible because I don't want to get pulled over for the wrong reason. I don't even understand it. I'm like, what? Who lives like that? How? I'll tell you who lives like that. Black people live like that.
Got pulled over driving from Vegas to Phoenix. This is about 10 years ago, over the Hoover Dam. Cop comes up, says, license, registration, yada, 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 where you going? Give him the stuff. And he says, he takes the stuff, and as he's walking away, he says, step out of the vehicle. I say, oh, here we go. Get out of the car. Next thing you know, he's pointing his gun at me. Get back in the vehicle, get back in the vehicle. And I'm yelling back at him, but you just told me to step out of the vehicle. And we're yelling at each other probably good 5-7 seconds before it hits me. He is going to unload if you do not get back in this car. And so I get back in the car, and he walks up later and he says, I told you to stay put. There was no reason for him to pull a gun on me, and there was definitely no reason to say stay put, like I'm going to drive off, leaving my license and registration with you. I mean, it's ridiculous. But that's...
Well, it's ridiculous, and that's not happening to me.
Exactly, but it's one of a million stories of people that I know personally, not reading about in the news, that go through this all the time.
I was arrested for being sarcastic to a police officer, and nonstop sarcastic for being sarcastic is what I was arrested for. And the number of my black friends who I have spoken to who say simply that they marvel at the very idea of, wait a minute, white people talk back to the cops?
Mm-hmm.
Talk back to what do you it's something other than yes sir, no sir. White people get away with talking back to police officers?
I did it in Pennsylvania. I told the story on the air on the way to Hershey Park, where a guy pulled me over with my kids, asked me if I had weapons in the back of my car, and I started unleashing on him. Like, are you kidding me, in front of my kids? And he let me go. He gave me a speeding ticket and then let me go.
It's two different Americas governed by two different police forces.
I had the NYPD cops in the subway in New York. With 5 of them. They were all about like 6'2", looking like they're MMA guys. I'm younger. I'm probably like 20, 21. And I had a bottle of Snapple in my hand. And the guy says, "Put the bottle down." And I say, "It's just a bottle. It's a plastic bottle of Snapple." And he says, "I don't know. You might be Bruce Lee's cousin." Insinuating that I'm going to take this, use it as a weapon to de-arm and incapacitate 5 dudes who are all 6'2", 250 pounds. I was probably 120 pounds at the time.
Nobody really wants to hear these stories, right? My stories of being mistreated by the police is not something that people want to hear.
But my point is, these are not egregious examples. It's just like, that was a Tuesday, right?
I'm not saying that this is bad radio. I'm just the reaction to Kenny Smith,
right,
who is trying, was really bad. Yeah. Kenny Smith comes on with us, and he's trying to do a State of the Union, and people were viewing it as divisive, even as he told a story of Bill Russell that was specifically how wrongly divisive he had been, and Bill Russell correcting him, you have to be inclusive. It's because Kenny Smith is talking to just black NBA players, that starting point is one where people don't hear anything after that.
And by the way, he wasn't talking to, he said this for everybody, but it's specifically for.
He's trying to he's trying to reach the black power elite.
Well, some of the complaints where he was vague, they wanted specifics. Well, go watch what he's going to do at 1 o'clock.
But I mean, it's just specifics on what? Like, what do you...
Right, the idea that I have to have a freaking business plan with a plastic binder folder in order to bring it up. That's so ridiculous. That's why we are where we are, because we won't have the conversation because no one has specifics yet.
Everyone feels helpless. And then, very often what ends up happening is it becomes a political debate or a gun control debate. And you don't want this. I do think that part of it is, not with my sports. Not with my sports. And I mean, you just can't watch everything that happened with Ali and the way we eulogized him but a couple of weeks ago. And say that. No, do not say that, especially with your sports.
It should be with your sports. I mean, those guys, LeBron, Carmelo, the black athletes, they carry a lot of weight. They can make a difference. It should be with your sports.
But people around this conversation, it's interesting. Like, you just rip Kenny Smith, and I will ask you again, what are you doing? Kenny Smith is trying to organize. He is trying... You want him to do what exactly? Like, he's doing more than most. Like, what is it that you want? You've got the solution? Who the hell's got the solution? The president of our country doesn't have the solution. Like, who's got the solution? You can't be watching what's happening on television right now and not feel heartbroken and scared for our country that feels like it's at war. You watch some of these visual images and it feels like we're at war with black people.
The messed up part is, Dan, I wonder how much of this is just because we have the technology to let it be.
Well, that's what's happening.
That's it's been happening.
No,
right?
this is white people seeing it largely for the first time. That's what's happening here. Where 20 years ago, it's black people telling. This isn't new. None of this is new. None of it is new. I mean, hell, NWA was selling bleep the police 25 years ago. They were. None of this is new. We just have the video now. This is what I'm talking about, though. It's The majority is being introduced to some of this stuff, and how can you deny it now? That's the part that I don't get is if you're denying it now, if you're making all of these arguments about media race baiting, when presented with the video, if you're denying it now,
how are people's initial reactions just not shock and disgust? When you see the guy get shot and his girlfriend is taping it, how are you not immediately disgusted at what you just saw? How can you possibly? How does your mind go to a place where, well, what did he do? This whole thing where, well, surely he did something wrong to warrant getting shot.
But how can you watch never mind Ali, how about watching the OJ documentary? How can you watch any of this stuff and not realize that the ethnicities are living in two different Americas in a way that's overt? If with the modern technology you want to deny that this stuff does not exist, it's only because you're insistent on believing what you already believe. It can't be because you're open-minded about being offered proof.